Welcome to Tiger Drop Films. If you're a returning viewer, then I have to thank you greatly, for today is a special day. I started this channel a year ago from a humble start, and thanks to all of you I've been able to hit 150 subs. So to celebrate, we're going to reflect on the history of the infamous secret boss battles of the Yakuza series, the Amon Clan. What is it that makes Joe Amon and his clan so unique? Why are they so memorable, and how does Amon encapsulate the classic arcade feel of video games? And what other franchise has a boss battle that can go from Gun Fu to an episode of Looney Tunes? Let's get down to business and find out. The Amon Clan can be best described as final skill tests for players in the main game, as in no climax battles or anything, merely the final award for completing sub-stories and additionally engaging with the core game after the story wraps up. But these tests are normally no walk in the park. They're meant to either piss you off or leave you sweating, and if they manage to do both, then you know you're facing none other than the Amon Clan. Now, there isn't as much narrative history as there is rich gameplay, but that's okay, because Amon is like those hard boss battles you get in a classic arcade game. I remember playing the likes of Streets of Rage, Contra, or even Altered Beast with my uncle, and we tried to get as far as we could. The point is that classic arcade boss fights can be really challenging or even feel unfair, sometimes cartoonishly unfair. But I think there's a genuine appeal in that where players have to put all their mental skills and determination into a good brawl. And Joe Amon definitely fits that to a T. I'm going to cover the Amons in all the main console games, including the Judgment series. As you can see, there's 13 games with roughly 23 Amons, since I'm going to keep the 3 Kiwamis tied to their originals. For example, with Ishin, I'll just discuss both versions in one spot. I'm doing that so it's easier to compare the Kiwamis to their original counterparts. The majority of Amons on this list may have some more coverage than others, but it's only due to which ones I've conquered personally. Out of the 23 Amons, I've defeated 17. Right before recording this video, I beat up Joe Amon in 0. Through my experience, the easiest Amon I've defeated was Joe from Ishin, and that was on Legend. He had 2 fights, and both were honestly easy, if a bit time-consuming and spongy, but still a breather compared to the Joe Amon fight in Yakuza 5 that I consider the hardest fight I've had. Keep in mind, that was just my experience, but yeah man, the Joe Amon fight in Yakuza 5 was brutal and full of suffering. It truly tested my patience and willpower. I'll go into detail when I get to their entry, but after that Joe Amon fight in 5, it was intense and almost ended my career. I'll never go out of my way to fight that Joe, but would I do it again for Ada Wong? Yes. The original Yakuza released in 2005, and wouldn't you know it, that was the first appearance of Joe Amon. A character who fits in so well with many early 2000s characters, following the same trend of black sunglasses and a leather jacket. Just look at the screen. The Matrix, Blade, X-Men, Ninja Turtles, and even Godzilla Final Wars. Oh, and I can't forget Albert Wesker either. I discovered this early concept art for Kiryu thanks to Yakuza fans Forging the Dragon series here on YouTube. Big shout out to those guys. This concept art makes me wonder if it was deliberately adapted to be Joe Amon's design. I mean, look at the sunglasses and dark trench coat here. So if we take this into consideration, it's fun to imagine that one of Kiryu's scrapped character designs evolved into Amon, which somehow is a bit poetic since, as we'll see later in this video, Amon is often a mirror match for Kiryu. But in the context of the original Yakuza, take note that Amon can Tiger Drop and Komaki knock back Kiryu at any time during the fight. Add this to the clever reuse of story boss movesets like Arase and Lao Kalong and several phases, and you get an intense battle for the first game in the franchise. He's unlocked through completing every sub-story. But keep in mind that in the original, it's possible to miss out on sub-stories entirely. It makes me wonder if this made of Joe Amon some kind of urban legend for players back in the early days. If we look at Kiwami 1, the remake of the original, the duel with Amon also occurs in Theater Square. But things are amped up as he's given the most health bars in the series with a monstrous 16. By this point in the franchise, Amon is known for having a new gimmick. And in Kiwami 1, it's the fact that after his first 8 health bars, it looks like he's finished. But wait a few moments and he returns to Mad Dog style. From my understanding, the Kiwami Joe is a reuse of a Yakuza 0 moveset, but slightly tweaked. Having fought both of them myself, I can say there are enough differences, and besides in 0, you fought him as Majima, not Kiryu. When it comes to a little bit of story, the original and Kiwami are certainly unique, since it's the beginning of Amon's rivalry with Kiryu, where he wants to uphold the honor of his clan by demolishing the strongest spiders of all time. However, being defeated by Kiryu pisses him off so much that he vows to train harder so he can have his pride restored. This is a classic trademark of Joe from here on out, where he wants to take revenge on Kiryu for beating him in a fight that he asked for himself. Practically every fight in the games going forward is the same bit, where Amon claims he's stronger than Kiryu and Kiryu must die. Although in the case of Kiwami 1, I chuckled when Amon looks at the camera because for a lot of players that played the original a decade prior, they knew what to expect. Even Kiryu smirks and looks back. It's a funny fourth wall break that fits. So, the secret boss idea from the original Yakuza spawned an incredible ongoing series of secret boss fights that makes Yakuza extra special. So let's talk about the sequel, Yakuza 2. So, it's Yakuza 2, where sequels mean bigger and better. But for Amon, that means an additional 3 members to fight. There's now Kazuya, Jiro, and Sango Amon before you fight Daddy Joe himself. Here's something funny about Kazuya. Only in the classic version of 2, he looks like this. From 4 onward, he's just Joe but blonde. Additionally, Jiro as well has a different design that was changed in 4, where he became bigger and had long hair. Sango, on the other hand, was just given the sunglasses and a nice hat. But let's be real, these guys are out for blood. In the original and Kiwami 2, Kazuya has his dual blades, while Sango has his missile launcher. Jiro, on the other hand, is given a bit of an upgrade as he has a small SMG. But he's still the gun guy in both versions. And then we have Joe Amon himself. Now, in the original, the fight took place at the docks, and I prefer that. I think it's more unique. But in Kiwami 2, you fight Joe Amon in the lobby of the Millennium Tower. Now, up until that point, we've never had an Amon fight at the Sacred Tower, so there's that. The original version of Joe, once again, has several phases, but his claim to fame is that he has the ultimate essence heat action, which can one-shot Kiryu depending on the difficulty level. See here. In terms of both original and Kiwami 2, both Joe Amons retain some sort of sci-fi weapon. In the original, Amon has these dual plasma weapons that look like they're from Halo, but in the remake, Amon has 2 lightsabers. In terms of story, both games retain the fact that Joe Amon forces Kiryu to fight him after he hurt the Dilf master that is, Santaro Kamaki. So it was really satisfying to be able to punch Joe Amon in the face. The other 3 Amon brothers are pretty cool. I'm glad they add a little more lore to the clan because we see more members. But in Kiwami 2, every Amon was given this strange energy shield and defense buffs that I find pretty annoying. Especially whenever they reappear in Purgatory because you can fight them there. Besides that, they're a lot of fun in the sub-stories. Here's what I did to them. Before we look at Yakuza 3, I felt that I should include Kinzen. This is an Amon I haven't faced since I can't play Kinzen, so I'll keep it brief. He's called Amon Jonashin, and appears for a bit during one of the story chapters. I'll just say this, I'll remember him as the Amon that took his sunglasses off. Ugh, so cursed. He's got swords as you expect and gets back up for round 2 like in Kiwami 1. It ends with Amon being slain by Miyamoto, but claims his soul will live on to face Miyamoto in another life. Now, in Yakuza 3, we see the beginning of the tradition of fighting Amon in the Okinawa Bull Ring. But this is the only game where it makes sense because the game is all about Okinawa. I'm looking at you, Yakuza 0. In Yakuza 3, Joe Amon is the only one you fight, but he returns with dual lightsabers. He then uses Arase's moveset. I haven't faced this one, so here's some wonderful footage thanks to Patriarch Leon. Notably, the story here is pretty interesting. Amon states that the essential nature of living creatures is to tear each other down. One cannot live without taking another's life. In fact, it's the core of our very being. We of the Amon Clan see our mission as the pursuit and mastery of this vocation. It's ominous, but I think it's nice to get a little more depth with Amon's character. Now, remember Doc Brown? It turns out that his IF-7 Virtua fighter machine ties into Joe Amon's obsession of killing Kiryu. He wanted the machine so he could adapt the fighting styles of Kiryu's foes, and to know Kiryu's every move. I've seen some clips and Amon seems a bit more deranged than before. I plan on battling this Amon, but the sub-stories in theory are locked behind a lot of mini-games, so it's going to take me some more time. But I've heard he falls under the easier category. And next, we have Yakuza 4. And this batch of Amon was actually the first that I defeated, mostly because being able to switch between 4 characters allowed me to complete a lot of sub-stories and other things a lot quicker because it made things more fresh. We see the return of Kazuya, Jiro, and Sango, since it makes sense for these guys to battle the new protagonist, Akiyama, Saejima, and Tanemura. Jiro brings out this godly hammer against Saejima, while Sango once again prefers to be ranged as he fights Tanemura. Kazuya, on the other hand, is quite a pushover as Akiyama can easily manhandle him. The cool thing here is that when Kiryu fights Joe, he'll use the movesets of his brothers before him. It's a classic video gamey thing I appreciate. However, Joe also has a damn laser carpet bomb from either an orbital satellite or some stealth jet, and it's incredible. It's very memorable. Anyway, here's how I finished him. Yeah, you've probably seen that a lot in my intros. And next we have Yakuza 5. Ah, the game with the fabled brawl that made me eat dirt. We once again see the return of Kazuya, Jiro, and Sango, but for the last time in the franchise chronologically. Although I must say, since Amon brought his brothers to the fight, this is the first time I let my 2 younger brothers take a turn at an Amon fight. You see, I let them take on Kazuya and Jiro while I handled Sango and Joe. So shout out to my fellow cavemen for helping me. If not, then my hands would have probably been cramped by the end. Kazuya was once again easy for Akiyama, except this time he was a straight up mirror match. In spite of that, Jiro was given the god-forsaken Kunai moveset. I swear, Yakuza 5 was obsessed with not only 5 Kunai boss fights, but constantly reusing his movesets. Haha. Jiro also was given Majima's new Shadow Clone ability, and they all have Kunai's moveset. So if Saejima as the slowest but hardest hitting character, you have to fight a total of 5 Kunais at once. It was like watching a bunch of boulders fight. Then I took back over to fight Sango, who starts as a mirror match for Shinada with pull weapons. And then we enter his next phase, where we once again see a reused moveset from a character-specific story used against a different character who never fought them. Yes, Shinada had to fight Sango, who was using the Mountain God moveset from Saejima's time in the mountains. So imagine playing as Shinada, whose combat is 100% underdog, and best when using weapons, against Sango, who can fly, shoot a barrage of homing umbrellas, and a plethora of magical attacks, only in the Like a Dragon series. Then we get to Joe Amon, who is a mirror match of Yakuza 5 Kiryu's new abilities like his Raging Red Dragon Spirit Heat Mode. because Rage Mode was popular in 2012. Joe will leave trails of fire and can use a dragon spirit for what feels like an unlimited time. Did I mention he can repeatedly grab Kiryu if he gets too close? So you can't get too close for long during the fight, but can't stay far away due to the fire trails, and because Amon will start spawning the umbrella Sango had. If you get knocked down in this fight, you better be ready because he can demolish your health bar. Awful stuff, but I say that in the sense that it gave me a hell of a fight. In a franchise where characters will lament about fighting that pivotal fight where they can prove themselves, well, I gotta say that Yakuza 5's Joe Amon gave me just that. I can hate it, but at the same time it feels fulfilling. With that in mind, I'm so proud that I finished him with the Tiger Drop. Hot damn. I'm gonna play the clip 5 times. So, Yakuza 5's Joe Amon was absolutely the hardest fight I've had in the series, just for me. Before I move on, there's actually a 5th Amon fight in this game, and that's Noah Amon, who is Haruka's secret boss fight, and it's a pretty fun one, as it's nice to see a little more of Haruka's character. She shows what she's learned from Kiryu in regards to not having animosity towards enemies that hate you. Now, I realize that in my earlier count of Amons, I said that I defeated 17. But technically, it can be 18 if you count Noah as a proper Amon fight or just part of a special minigame. Noah is the direct brother of Joe Amon and the daughter of So Amon. Essentially, Noah wants to defeat Kiryu herself, and probably because I'm sure she's Joe's therapist. We learn that Noah wants to end the feud between the Amons and Kiryu by defeating Haruka. Since as a woman, the Amons won't let Noah fight Kiryu. Or maybe because Kiryu doesn't hit women. Probably either way, right? Ultimately, Noah dons the Amon sunglasses with the heart shape and has an idol battle against Haruka where she then loses. It should be noted that Noah has the strange laser powers that Joe has. But after Noah's defeat, Haruka gives her a pep talk and the two end up respecting each other. If I ever do a video over Haruka, maybe I'll go into more depth of Noah since she's pretty much the Amon with the most dynamic depth, plenty enough. Next, this is a brief entry as we look at Dead Souls, the Elseworlds sort of spin-off that released after Yakuza 4. And in this non-canon story where zombies and mutants are in Kamurocho, we learn that Kazuya, Jiro, and Sango were murdered by Ryatsu Amon, the ancestor of the clan. We only see Kazuya and Jiro for a little bit before their death, since it appears that Kiryu has to fight Ryatsu twice. Ryatsu is, he's an undead Imperial Army soldier from what I understand. And yeah, that's pretty insane. Ryatsu then grabs Joe's sunglasses and fights Kiryu underground. He has a bunch of lasers because why not? It's funny that while this isn't part of the main series, Kiryu pretty much saves Joe Amon. Now let's get into Yakuza 0, where we get another insight to the Amon Clan's lineage of So Amon, the father of Joe and Noah. He's the Amon that has gray hair and looks old. Kiryu ends up fighting So after completing all of his sub-stories, and Majima fights a young Joe Amon in the same vein. I've only done the Joe fight, but it's a fun one. But it did feel a bit underwhelming since I fought the Kiwami 1 version beforehand. Nonetheless, it's the only time we fight Amon as Majima, so it's special. Joe will use Kiryu's brawler style before using Majima's Mad Dog. He'll also place fake healing products in your inventory like Amon tissues and stamina sporks. The build up to this fight is funny because Majima thinks Sotenbori is going to be destroyed, and Joe's like, what the hell, man? We also see Joe trying to come up with his opening lines right before Majima appears, so that's humorous. Oh, and Joe isn't a revenge-fueled psycho yet, so there's that. So then we have So Amon, and from the videos I've seen he desires to face Kiryu because he had a dream where a young man becomes a legend and destroys the reputation of the Amon clan. So Amon pretty much describes Kiryu's life in the first game, so it's a bit of a cheeky wink to the audience. So uses a cannon that can spawn the classic Amon black and red death laser, but will also summon a helicopter that causes a tornado of chairs. Crazy stuff. I guess only So, Joe, and Noah can use that signature laser. Now we're at Like a Dragon Ishin, where we get yet another look into a member of the Amon Clan's lineage. His name is Amon Genjosai. To unlock his first fight, you have to not only do every sub-story, but every single dungeon. It was a chore to grind only for both of his fights on Legend that end like this for me. I still don't know how I took him out in that second one. Yeah, it's just funny because the Western fanbase asked and waited years to play Ishin, and the Amon fight ended like that for me. Maybe it was just a Kiwami version. But for the fights themselves, the first one has Genjosai spawn shadow clones that look like the Pepsi Man. It's a pretty straightforward fight, then the second one was a bit more difficult, as it's way more of a mirror match with Wild Dancer thrown into the mix. But overall wasn't too challenging. It probably led more into the spongy category because they removed the multiple health bars in the Kiwami version. In the original Ishin, they removed Sakamoto's troop cards for the second Amon fight, but the Kiwami version let Sakamoto keep them. This was definitely the easiest two Amon fights I've seen, despite being on Legend. I think it's a case of all the dungeons making Sakamoto so powerful that by the time he fought Amon, he'd seen everything. Now overall, when it comes to the story side, this Amon wanted to fight Sakamoto because he was the strongest warrior he'd come across. It's practically just that. And now we're at Yakuza 6, The Song of Life. This was originally the last game to have a playable Kiryu, until Kiwami 2 released, and now we're getting Gaiden. But at the time, this was a ceremonious game, so it's only right that it's the last chronological battle between Kiryu and Joe Amon. To trigger this fight, you have to complete the sub-stories regarding Sadachi and Saigo, and that's it, making this a truly unique occurrence in the franchise. You only have to do 2 sub-stories. Joe summons Kiryu so he can put his skills to the test once again and supposedly be able to conquer the Dragon of Dojima. The duel takes place on a very small floating island that serves as an arena because, of course, Amon would own an island. Now, what's the gimmick of this fight? Drones and Roombas. This one caught me off guard initially, but I suppose it fits the theme of Kiryu being in a time where he's an old man and technology is evolving. I found the Amon fight in 6 to be one of the harder ones, because if Kiryu runs into any drones or Roombas, they explode. Joe's moveset is a rehash of Iwami and Akiyama with some extra spice. But Joe will develop an energy shield to lower his health gets, and he starts tanking so much damage. Since there's only one health bar in Yakuza 6, it makes sense why RGG did this. It made me appreciate the nuances of Yakuza 6's combat. So once Kiryu defeats Joe Amon, this cutscene plays, and it's sweet because it's actually voice acted.
Nando de mo kairi uchi ni shite yaru to mae ni itta to omou ga na. Naze da? 強くなるため手段を選ばず何でもやってきた。幾人もの敵を倒し血を吐くような鍛錬を重ねて何者にも負けぬ強さを求め続けているのに、なぜ貴様には勝てぬ。さあな。おいアモン、お前俺のところに来る気はねえか。何を言っている。今ちょっと仲間を集めていてな。
お前が来てくれりゃ100人力だ。
バカな。なぜ貴様の仲間になど。
修羅場の数には不自由させねえ。強くなりてんだろ。うってつけじゃねえか。それに俺の命を狙ってるなら近くにいた方が都合がいいだろ。力を貸してくれ、アモン。その代わりお前の好きな時にいつでも襲ってくりゃいい。返り討ちにするけどな。
いいだろう。後で自分がいかに甘い考えをしていたか思い知るがいい。
決まりだな。よろしく頼むぜ、アモン。
アモン一族飼いならせるなどと思うな。
Ah, man. And so was the last time we saw Kiru fight Joe Amon. And while it may not have been the smoothest ending, it was probably as good as it could have been, knowing how long Joe's despised Kiru. But perhaps this pseudo-alliance of Kiru and the Amon clan was telling of what would happen in Yakuza 7. But before we get to 7, I gotta say one thing. I didn't cover it because it's not a direct Yakuza game, but RGG made a Fist of a North Star game where none other than Joe Amon appears. Sadly, and perhaps not sadly, he meets his demise. And what were Joe Amon's final words? Nagoshi! Not only did this man pull insane feats of power for several games, and manage to cross into an entirely different intellectual property only to fall while screaming the name of his creator, Toshihiro Nagoshi. It's strangely poetic. So while the master of pulling gimmicks Joe Amon may be dead, his legacy lives on with the brand new Amon, Shin Amon. He first appeared in Judgment in 2018, then appeared in Yakuza 7 in 2019. And the last appearance of Shin Amon was in 2021's Lost Judgment. So he's already made 3 pretty good appearances. I would say his big claim to fame is being one of the very, very few characters to have met Yagami and Kiru. In Japan, Shin means new or true, and I first learned that when Shin Godzilla came out. From a lore standpoint, Shin is the least bloodthirsty Amon since we had Noah. He still wants to fight, of course, but Shin is just wanting to be the strongest by proving himself first and foremost. The Shin Amon fight in Yakuza 7 takes place at the top of the Millennium Tower, reusing the office from Tendo's fight. However, this battle is notable because it's the only Amon fight where you have to face a gauntlet of foes right before facing the Amon. Shin Amon himself seems to love junk food, and in 7 he was designed to fit the style of a JRPG since it's Ichiban's game. I haven't fought him yet, but I've seen footage and his fight is absolutely insane. He's able to pull one-hit kill moves while also summoning Heat Ghost of Kiru, Saejima, and Majima. What a beast. Then after the fight, there's a small cutscene where Shin acknowledges the real Kiru's statement that Ichiban is going to be his own man. It's nice to see such a chill Amon, and as I stated a few minutes ago, I guess it's a bit of a carryover from the little bit of truce between Joe and Kiru in 6. And we're at the Judgment series, where in the first game, Shin's big gimmick is that he's able to steal Yagami's phone during gameplay, therefore preventing the player from healing or using any other tonics. It appears that Shin's fight makes use of Yagami's Tiger and Crane style, where the player has to switch to the right color to avoid massive damage and instead receive a little buff. Then the shields are broken out and that concept is flipped on its head. Shin Amon will use these electric whips that look cool as hell. Ah man, looks like I'm at the last entry already. Lost Judgment. This has been a fun ride. So, Lost Judgment sees Shin Amon return after you complete all the side cases, but it's revealed that Shin has a twin brother named Juzo. I guess they both love wearing a blue shirt underneath their jackets. There's even a small Dead Souls reference where Juzo knocks Shin down. Oh man, is that a pool of blood underneath Shin? I haven't fought Juzo myself in the main story, but I took a crack at him in the climax battles. I got pretty close, but I'll have to try again. Ultimately, Juzo teleports Yagami to the high school rooftop where they battle underneath the rain. It's pretty snazzy. The drones make a return, and Juzo, as you expect, reuses quite a few movesets. He's a beast and a worthy addition to the clan. In the end, Yagami defeats Juzo and Shin thanks him. And then he asks they want to go out for drinks. It's a pretty wholesome way to tie up the history of Amon until now. So let's recap all the Amons we know. In the 1600s there was a Amon Jonoshin. Then in the 1800s there was Amon Ginjosai. There was likely an equivalent to Ryatsu Amon that existed in the early 20th century. Then in the later 20th century we had So Amon, whose children were Joe and Noah. Throw in Kazuya, Jiro, and Sango as other members of the clan who are related. Then we have the two Amons introduced in the Judgment spin-off series, Shin and Juzo. In conclusion, the Amon Clan are an incredible part of the Like a Dragon series that's evolved since the beginning. In a series where it's common for characters to pride themselves on finding the worthy thrill of battle, it makes sense for the secret bosses to be unrelenting, in the sense of fundamental video game design. The Amons are a terrifying force at their best and a grindy to-do list at their worst. But more often than not, they give me a solid reason to return to Yakuza games I've already completed the main story on, but giving me incentive to pursue the other sides of these games. This is my favorite franchise of all time because it combines what I love about films and games with insanely memorable characters. And I gotta say, it never gets old to Tiger Drop the Amon Clan. Thank you all so much for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing so I can make more content like this. It's crazy I've already had a year of this channel and it's a hobby I really adore. Let me know in the comments below what your experience with Amon has been like. Which ones have you defeated? I'll be back to discuss the things I love and to Tiger Drop the things I don't. Stay tuned.